Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Devs, back with another Kamihime project video. This is going to be another Union event, so get used to the Thunder version of this Seraphims, because we're going to be having this for about a week or so. Also, should point out that while this event does not give any SSR Idoans, thanks to the last event that we had gone through, found out that you get Idoan orbs. So you still are getting something. In fact, you get a lot more add-on orbs than a normal event would possibly give. Because normally you would get maybe 750, you're getting far more than that with these Seraphim events. So it's a good time to actually rack up some add-on orbs if your union can handle dealing with the list and whatnot. Now, second thing to point out, these union weapons can actually be very, very strong. Even the defender one, if you want to be honest, because of the fact that when you final break these, they go from large to oversized. And think of oversized as extra large. And then going all the way up to skill level 30, you're pretty much getting 30% to either assault or defender. If you do need a defender weapon, this is probably the one defender weapon to get. If you don't need them, then that's fine, but the assault weapons are definitely strong for that, because it's not often you find a weapon that gives 30% assault between all of its skills. So these are some pretty strong weapons. Also have to point out that I've been hearing from some players that play on the Japanese side, the DMM side, there's apparently some sort of thing that they'll have where they really just don't like players spamming Paralyze, which has been pretty much a go-to method for a lot of higher tier unions, because you can just spam Paralyze and lock down a boss entirely. Far as I've read in this already, this boss is supposed to be very, very resistant to debuffs, and then, according to some of the DMM players, there are going to be some bosses where they just outright resist any and all attempts to debuff them certain ways. Like, for instance, one of these Union events, there will be a boss that's completely immune to Paralyze, no matter how high or low their resistance is, so immunity is becoming a thing. That said, it's generally best just to be able to deal with a boss outright. Just be able to just outright kill them. And if you ask me, the Paralyze spam is cheesing the fight and whatnot, and while it is strategically easier, it's really just something not the devs didn't intend to do, so apparently they're fighting against it. So all I can say is whenever that's done, where you can't do any of that, then generally you're going to just want to be able to beat the fight outright. Me personally, with the Union buffs, I can actually solo level 200 plus in Ultimate. So that said, you can get pretty strong. So there's that. But anyways, they still do let you debuff attack and defense and whatnot. It's just, from what I've read in this version, it's going to be a very resistant boss, so keep that in mind. And she will debuff herself too. I'll get to that later. Also, any newer players or even players that don't have Morgan or Shingen, and not to be confused with Mordred, Genj, because she works towards pretty much normal attack damage. If you don't have either of these two, here's your chance to get some special soul points in order to collect them, because this is a very good source of special soul points. So is the Labyrinths whenever they start showing up more often. So keep in mind that this is practically your only time for the time being to get the special soul points. If you miss out, then you're going to have to wait for a little while. Other than that, you have to spend medals from pretty much tower or guild competitions, and that's really not recommended. So this is the time to get the special soul points, basically. And also keep in mind that the way this layout is split, you should have at least a few dedicated days, or even some people that can't handle the harder fights go and get the items to go buff your union. So that's a very good strategy as well. That way they're still also getting some participation points and able to clear their individual lists and whatnot. But speaking of which, these buffs. Now, I don't have the confirmed numbers, I believe. There was someone that did test things out and look up a lot of stuff, but I remembered there's a lot of changes that was up there. If you really try to get the debuff rate increase, it's not going to be as good as the previous demons. So that's honestly the only ones that tend to get that is the ones that spam paralyze. And well, if this boss is going to be very resistant or even outright immune, there's really no point. You don't really need resistance towards debuffs. As far as I can tell, none of the fights debuff you, but there is something special that happens with them. Healing power is pretty much your ascension. You get free 150% of it if you max this out. Maybe useful if you need a lot of healers, but other than that, I probably wouldn't worry too much about it. The other 5 is the ones you want to go for. You want to max out the attack power, and you want to max out the defender. They are both confirmed to be 150%. I know that for a fact. So that said, you are going to get 150% assault and 150% defender. That's going to more than double your HP, and it should theoretically more than double your damage output too. Unless you're hitting the soft caps, then you're going to have some discrepancies. But still, more assault always welcome. More defender always welcome. Now the burst damage is dependent on how good the players in your union are, because if you're strong enough, you don't really need the burst damage increase to hit the soft caps. But this is 150% more burst damage, so that means your 5-time multiplier will become 6.5, and your Awakened Kamihime, which have a 5.5 multiplier, will have a 7 times multiplier. So that's getting you very close to that maximum of a 10 times multiplier. In fact, this combined with Shingen's Provisional Forest, if you do have her, would easily shoot you more than halfway towards that. So there you go. Now, the combo rate increases. As far as I know, these have been massively increased. And I do mean massive. I just don't remember the exact amounts. I will try to post that screenshot of the data that somebody has gotten before. But as far as I know, I think it was at least a 50% double attack increase if you max out double. And triple was at least 20%. I don't remember that for sure. Like I said, I will put it pinned in one of the comments, a link to that image, but it is very, very, very strong. My suggestion to you is to get at least half to both, at least 50 buffs towards both, or even max them out, because your combo rates will skyrocket. But definitely max out the attack power, definitely max out the defender. Depending on how your burst damage is and all that, you may or may not be able to skip it. But you do want to try and get a lot in your combo rates. If anything, at least try to max out the triple attack, because you definitely want triple attack to happen more than the double. But anyways, getting into the fights themselves, you need AP in order to start your own, I don't know what they call them. You call them Serones? When you, this is why Google Translate is weird. But, they are your source of grinding the quote-unquote grails. They changed the name and the item icon, but they still work the same, basically. But this is your way of getting the, Holy Crosses, that's the name of it. This is your way of getting those in order to get the Union buffs. And they're not too difficult, but there are some interesting mechanics for these ones, so you do have to pay attention a little bit if you are on the same level as them. If you're way past it, just beat them up like normal. Me personally, I can go into burst time and just insta-kill either one, so if players that are at that point don't even have to worry about the strategy for them. You will eventually have to worry about the strategy for the Seraph, though, so that's one thing that everybody has to pay attention to. The Seraphs get harder and harder each time you kill them. So when you get to like level 100 or 200 or something, it doesn't matter if it's expert or ultimate, it will start building up more and more HP, more and more attack power, and there's a very good chance at one point you're going to just get overwhelmed. So it will happen eventually, provided that you do have to fight it at one point. But all those Seraph fights are going to take BP and not AP, so you honestly need both, unless you jump into somebody else's raids in order to get the Holy Crosses. So in that case, it would need BP as well. And the Seraph fights are union only. The other fights can actually be shared to anybody. But a good building strategy for it is that weaker players should band together and actually get the Holy Crosses and whatnot, because you can get multiple people getting crosses for your union at the same raid. And then the stronger players can just outright destroy those raids for the crosses, or work on the Seraphs. That's probably a general strategy you should have. And also, people playing support roles will be very, very helpful in these type of raids too, because there's a few things that's going to go down. But anyways, here's the 4 fights, and right out the gate, you'll notice something very interesting: low charge turn counts, and it gets even lower for the Seraph. So you will deal with 1 turn for both fights at one point. But anyways, whatever they call her, Serone, I don't know, Justice, she's going to be your Holy Cross fights. Her standard version, 700,000 HP. Her expert version, 2,550,000 HP. So like a little bit over 2.5 million. Both these fights, in fact both the Seraph fights as well, have no mode changes. So there's no raging mode, there's no stun. If you have any characters that are dependent on that, do not even think about using them. This also means that some souls are useless too, like Siegfried, because there's no like mode change. So Siegfried is full on useless. Now, with the actual effects and whatnot, every last one of these 4 fights, you do get one character nuked whenever they have full orbs. So that means that you'll see large damage go to one character. Things change when they start losing HP. But out the gate, Justice is going to hit one character with a specific attack, and it's going to put attention to them. I do believe that if no one has the attention debuff, which means they're going to be more likely to get targeted, then it's going to keep spamming this attack. I'm not fully sure, given what the data said further down when you read the paragraphs and whatnot, but it says if no enemy has received it. So that means either if she never used the attack or if she never debuffed somebody. So keep that in mind. It is a percentage-based attack, so it's going to take out a percentage of your HP. On standard, it's 20%. On expert, it's 30% of your max HP. Either way, when somebody gets hit with the attention debuff, it's 8 turns, and it's a long time. My suggestion to use is to leave this on them just in case, because if I'm right, and it's based on who gets debuffed with the attention, then she's just going to keep spamming it until it lands. You don't want that. Now, what makes this even more interesting is the fact that if her orb count is max and she's got half HP, she's going to hit, it says single enemy, so one person. It's going to hit one person with some very, very heavy damage and reduce their burst gauge by a certain amount. By 10 if it's standard, by 20 if it's expert. This is a really single target based fight by the looks of it, and you could probably see characters getting one-shotted if you're really weak, so you do have to keep that in mind. And with the 1 orb count, that means there's a lot of enemy burst frequency. So that means they're going to start hitting you very, very often. So orb control is actually very powerful in this. Same thing goes with the next fight. The next fights, which is the Seraph kindness. This is where things get a little interesting because, like I said before, no mode changes. The same type of thing where it's like one person gets hit whenever orbs is full. Her HP increases based on level counts and whatnot. She gets 750,000 HP at the start of Ultimate, half that at the start of Expert, and each time she is killed, it is an additional 75,000 per level for Expert, or 225,000 per level on Ultimate. That's pretty much the leveling formula. However, level 1 counts towards that leveling formula, so she'll have roughly about 450,000 HP on Expert at the start, and about 25,000 less than a million on Ultimate, and it'll just keep increasing from there. Getting into her special attacks, same data regardless of the fight, except for one little note right here. But her End of Mercy move, she's going to pretty much normal attack, up her own attack power, eliminate the upper limit of her charge turns. That means she's going to reduce herself from 2 to 1, but also lower her own defense whenever her HP is at half. So that means she's just going to hit with a normal hit apparently, and then buff the crap out of herself, along with a debuff. This debuff is indeed A-frame, so beware if you're clashing for anything with that, or just prep yourself around it. This is when her HP is half, and she doesn't have maximum orb count. She only does it one time. What's a little bit different based on the difficulty is that when End of Mercy is activated and her orb count has gone maximum, she will randomly nuke you. It is 2 times an Expert, 3 times an Ultimate. I don't know if this gets spammed. Again, the paragraph data is not clear, but be prepared just in case it does, because that means she's going to stop being single target and start going multi-hit every time her orbs are maxed out. So be prepared to take this at least once. And it's not going to happen until after her HP is halved out, because, again, she needs to use her End of Mercy trigger in order to actually pull off that random hit. So you do have to be very, very careful when the fight goes halfway, because she'll start hitting harder, she'll start hitting multiple people. Same time, her orb count is going to reduce. So if this does get spammed, that means it's going to happen a lot more frequently. So given all of this data, basically, and it even says right here that there's some resistance. It's like debuff resistance is slightly higher and difficult to enter. That means that she's going to have some very high debuff resistance. Personally, I don't know if this means that she's going to be immune to paralyze, but that also means good luck landing it. There's a good chance it's going to miss. So that said, you probably don't want to rely on it, but if you can pull it off, so be it. But the general idea of the fight is to actually try to, first off, you need your own defenses against some of her stuff later down the line, so you may or may not have to get some Joan users or characters that can tank it outright. Gaia's very good for this. Remember, it's a wind advantage for this one. When it comes to doing it for orb count, I don't know how many characters actually can do it, but they do seem to be limited by what they're giving this data to be. It's Wind Uriel and I guess Wind Jahudi. So you may or may not have any orb eaters if you're using the advantage element of wind. But at the same time, you do want to try and increase the maximum count if you can. More dread is going to be very good for that, if she can get it to land. And keep in mind that there's an A-frame debuff in there somewhere in the mix, so if you are using somebody that doesn't have 20%, then there's no point in really trying to bring an A-frame debuffer if you know what the frames are. So B-frame is going to be helpful for that one, and in fact, everybody should have the SR version of Cybele. She carries B-frame. If you do have the better SSR version, she's carrying a B-frame as well. It's just a stronger version of it, so good time to use her. There may be some that lower wind resistance. I'm not fully sure about that one, but you do have to be very careful with that, because if you have B-frame debuffing, then the A-frame should be good enough that the boss puts on itself. If you got wind resistance, be very, very wary of using it, because again, the chances of debuffs landing is kind of low, but that will reduce her resistance towards debuffs, so you do have to pay attention to when that type of thing lands. It will indeed stack with some natural debuff resistance, so something like Mordred using Vicissitudes of Fortune and actually getting that to land on the boss, along with wind resistance, you're really going to decrease the debuff rate. So that's a good time to actually start trying to spam your debuffs, because it can lower it back quite a bit. Also, keep in mind that when she goes into that state where half HP, you really do want to try and have some attack down if that can happen. So if you can land your attack down, there you go, but that's definitely a good time to try and end the fight. So there's really no real timing for burst, but that's probably the best time to actually try and break a lot of them out. Because say you have a whole bunch of Union members in a fight and you're steadily draining the HP because the boss has gotten to a really high level, well, everybody should try to nuke with burst whenever you see that in the mercy happens. You'll notice, because the boss will start buffing itself and debuffing itself as well at the same time, and its orb count is going to lower. Which is why refreshing is a good thing. So that's probably a good time to break out your bursts, or at least try to make sure you get them out, because you're going to want to take out that HP as quickly as possible. But anyways, there's rank rewards and 80 like event rewards as well. That's the main focus you want to do, because the event rewards is what's going to get you the SSR stuff and whatnot. The ranking rewards is dependent on how good you are. If you're not all that strong, I wouldn't worry about it too much, at least for the personal achievement. But you do have to keep in mind that there's multiple rankings for this stuff. So personal achievements is going to more or less be the participation points that you get, and there's ranks for that. It's all magic jewels, so if you can't get too high in it, that's fine. If you are, congratulations, then you should get a lot of magic jewels just from this event alone. But it's nothing too much to worry about if you can't really do too much about it. What you may want to pay attention to is the ultimate ranks and the expert ranks, because the thing with the normal rewards is that your individual points, at least a certain amount of them, because it doesn't take it from the Holy Cross fights, so you do have to kill Seraph from kindness for that one, I do believe. The participation points for that will also pull together as Union achievements, so there's that for those rewards. If you're trying to rank for the expert kill count and the ultimate kill count, it has to be done in one day, and this, you'll generally clear the list with that, but this is where things really count, because here's all the different stuff that you get and whatnot from each counts and whatnot. But the ranking rewards, you've noticed that you're getting more magic jewels regardless of them. And if you get high enough in the ranks, you'll start getting Dragonic Eye Shards for ultimate kills. The Grails for the expert kills can be very good, but not necessarily needed, especially since now that we got permanent raids that feed our Grails, so there's that. But this is probably one of the best times to get Draconic Eye Shards, if you can really get high up in the rankings. So my suggestion to everyone is to at least dedicate one day to spamming the crap out of Ultimate Seraphim raids, and that's also the best day to use your Grail buffs, or Holy Cross buffs, whatever you want to call them. That's the best time to get the Union buffs. That's the best time to sit back as much as a day as you can to clearing Ultimate. You may want to do the same thing for Expert, I don't know. But it also should start racking up some personal achievement points as well. So you should start climbing up those ranks, more or less, depending on how many kills you can get. But definitely try to get these Draconic Eye Shards. You also should be able to get Draconic Eye Shards from the list. So you have to keep that in mind. You should get those from the list as well. To the best of my knowledge, you should get, I think, roughly around 2,000 Eidolon Orbs if you clear this list. I don't fully remember, but from what I'm seeing along the list, it is about 2,000. And keep in mind that you normally get less than half of that from a normal event, so that's where you should probably clear this. You can get SSR accessories as well. It says there's Ancient in here too, so keep that in mind. You can get more Grails as well. The special soul points is definitely a high priority. You get more books. And you may want to start saving them up for 4th tier souls if you're not using them for Kamihime. But they can get pretty expensive for Kamihime, so keep that in mind. You can get experience items for accessories too. This is like the only time I ever noticed them appearing. That may change later down the line, but this is a good time to get those too. You can get gems, you can get magic jewels out the list as well. I don't know if they give you gacha tickets. Supposedly at one point they're supposed to give gacha tickets. I don't know if they started that yet. But I don't know. That may still just be a rumor or something, but it's something I came across before. But anyways, the main thing about the weapons, because this is the last thing I have to cover with the video. I doubt anybody's going to need the staff, the defender staff, especially when you get a much better defender anyway, so don't worry about that one. You may need the special sword if you're going for a glaive grid. It is still assault. Other than that, I wouldn't worry too much about it. There's a thunder axe that's got the massive assault. Get this weapon. Find somewhere to stick it in your grid if you can. Now, the magic tool, which is our arcane weapon. Arcane is generally considered not to be worth it unless you are very into gacha spamming. Because all of the better arcane weapons are in the gacha, and there's not many of them. So that said, arcane grids they're seriously whale territory. I could not put it any other way. Granted, there's a free Grail grid you can actually set up, but it's not all that strong. And it's not even for this element, so don't even worry about that grid. Unless somehow you can pull it off with Thunder. But at the same time, it's not going to be all that strong usually when you go into Arcanes. So I wouldn't even worry about that. I would still call it the Grail grid because you do need arcane tools and half of them are shaped like Grails anyways. But generally this doesn't have bad base stats if you do want to use it. In fact, it's got better stats than the assault weapon for some weird reason because the HP is higher than the other one. But if you do need a defender weapon, this is probably the one to go for. You get 30% defender. The only other thing I've noticed that gives like 30% defender is a special type of weapon that came with, I think it was a strength and defender. And that gave like 36%. Other than that, you're going to have to get a soul weapon for a lot of defender. And both methods are really just not recommended. So my suggestion to you, just slap on one of these and there you go. Otherwise, you'll probably get your defender from dual effect weapons because there's a lot of them that got 2 different skill effects. But definitely get this Thunder Axe. That's main priority. And then if you do happen to need some more HP, then slap on this arcane weapon. But other than that, you really shouldn't have to worry about too much. Maybe this glaive if need be, because you can still indeed get some decent glaive grids with SR weapons. You can still indeed get a lot of decent phantom weapon grids with that. But other than that, I wouldn't worry about too much else. This staff, just fodder. It's just fodder. It's massively overpowered by any other weapons. Period, point blank. Because you're getting it, like I said, a 30%. This thing's only given 13. Not worth. But anyways, that's all for this. Like I said, two things to really watch out for is that if the boss happens to spam its stuff, I think it might. Given the setup and everything, I think it might. But again, I can't really confirm that until I actually play the event, so that's something to know. Gaia is going to be very helpful for this event if you're using her, so keep that in mind. Awaken Gaia and get her. She's going to be extremely helpful. She is a 60% damage cut, so yeah, keep that in mind. But also, Grail buffs, again, I'm going to post that in the comments. I'm going to try to find that picture. But, anyways, that's all for this. More is going to come soon, and once again, if any of you are out there watching this video and you are thinking about spamming Paralyze, you may not be able to land it this time, so personally, I would say do some testing on a day that doesn't use Grails if you're really planning on doing that. Do some testing without the Union bus before you try to hop in on that one. If you can get some to land, then you probably could pull it off. If not, then you're going to have to find a different strategy, unfortunately. But like I said, that's all for this. More of this is going to come soon because these are new events. Of course, well, they're not new, but the new enemies to fight. So, of course, I'm going to do videos. But that said, that's all for now, guys. Take care.